Vayishlach. So, Parshat Vayishlach has the meeting of Yaakov and Esav again, and there are a number of comments of the Ramban that relate to the meeting between Yaakov and Esav, and maybe we'll look at some of the psukim that seem to refer to it in chapter 32.
32, yeah.
So it's page 170 in your Chumashim. Okay, so what happens in Parshat Vayishlach? Where's Yaakov been? Yaakov has been away for 20 years. Right? He's coming back now, and he's going and he meets Esav. Why is he going to meet Esav? Why does he meet Esav? Esav meets him, correct. But Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lefanav. Yaakov sends Malachim to Esav, says, I'm coming, and he goes to Edom. So the Ramban will tell us that if you're coming back from Mesopotamia, and he's going down to the Negev, to Beersheba, where his father is, his mother and father supposedly, and question whether the mother's still alive, he would be going all the way down through Israel, and the land of Edom would be reasonably close to it. So chances are, if he were coming, Esav would hear about it, could have found out about it one way or the other, because the lands really abut against each other. So consequently, he felt it was more clever to tell Esav he's coming, right, rather than simply just let Esav find out on his own. And,
why didn't you tell me?
Why didn't you tell me? But that's a two-edged sword, because if he hadn't told Esav he's coming, possibly Esav would not have known.
Right.
So in fact, the rabbis say that that's actually what happens. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav v'leisav achiv asatzir tzidei Edom v'etzav lemar kol tamrin ladan v'echad. Okay, so it's clearly the parsha opens up with the comments that he sends messengers ahead to tell Esav that he's on the way down. And he says, I'm coming. I'm Lavan Garti V'Echaradata. I was with Lavan all these years, and I did downlead. Now I'm here. I've got Shor, Chamor, Tzon, Evet, Shivcha. I've got all these types of animals, and I want to find them Tzochem Beinecha. And the messengers go, and they come back, and they said, you know what? You're coming to him. He's coming to you. He's coming with 400 armed soldiers. So it looks like the one becomes related to the other.
These angels are people or angels?
So Rashi says they're angels. Simple pshat of the pasuk, they are sending emissaries, advanced troops, advanced scouts to make sure the way is set, to let Esav know. A malach is a person who is a messenger. So malachim and the spiritual malachim are messengers of God. That's why they're called malachim. Yeah. Okay. But you can also be a malach, be a regular messenger. You can be a shaliach, but you can also be considered a malach. So you can read it either way, and you can say that they are real malachim, or this could be the continuation of the end of the last week's parsha, right, which is the last thing that Yaakov was leaving, and after he meets Lavan, and he meets Malachei Elokim. God's angels, and he says this place is called Machanaim. It's Machanei Elokim Zeh, and then these are the angels he sends ahead. So those clearly in the psukim at the end of last week's parsha Vayetze, those malachim are clearly spiritual angels, angels. These malachim may be either angels, as Rashi says, malachim mamash, or it's possible that they could be once again people that he sends. Why would he send real angels?
They can get there faster.
Okay, it's a pretty good show for Esav if angels show up and say we're coming from Yaakov. That's pretty scary. That'll scare the pants out of anybody. So that's one suggestion.
But I didn't realize that angels worked for people.
Well, you can, I guess, harness them. I guess I don't know. They're really, but working for Yaakov is like working for the Almighty.
Okay.
You're right, but with a good question, if they are really angels of God, how can Yaakov give them commands?
Yes.
Excellent question. Okay, that's why the Medrash and most of the commentators say the Malachim are really human types of people being sent.
Yeah, the word angel.
They translate angels, but you could translate as messengers, okay? People in front of him. But Rashi does say the Malachim. Okay. And Esav is coming to meet you. You've got the give and take between them in Pasuk 4, 5, 6, and 7. They come back. And what does Yaakov do? He divides his camp into two. And why does he divide the camp into two? Looks like he's trying to divide his assets. He's concerned. He puts his tzon, his bakar, his malim into two camps. He takes the people that are with him. He divides them into two camps. He said if Esau comes to the first camp, the second camp will be able to escape. How does he know the second camp will be able to escape?
Yeah. How far can they possibly be from the first camp?
Right. So maybe Esau will wipe out. Maybe he'll divide his troops into two.
Yeah.
So we'll see the Ramban. The Ramban is going to suggest that Yaakov believed he could never be completely defeated. God had promised him that he will be with him, he will take care of him. So consequently, he didn't say that he will save everyone, but he promised him that he will have the blessing of Abraham, Yitzchak, and now Yaakov, which is really future having children and descendants and getting the land of Israel, which means someone's got to survive. So the best way to ensure some survivability is to divide your camp into two. If Esau comes to the first camp, the other camp will escape. Someone's got to get out of there alive. That's the promise he believed in. And he divides therefore all his assets as well into two camps. Okay? And Yaakov sends a message to Esau, and he prays to God at the same time. And he says to Hashem, in Pasuk, I'm on page 172 in Pasuk 10, Pasuk Yud, Vayom Yaakov, Elokei Avi Abraham, Elokei Avi Yitzchak, Hashem Omer Lai, Shuv Li'artzecha L'mot L'chei V'Yiti V'Yimach. You God, you're the God of Abraham, my father Yaakov, our father of Abraham, the God of my father Avram, and the God of my father Yitzchak, the God who told me to go back and I'll be good with you. I don't deserve the chesed. I am traveling, and therefore save me from my brother, from Esau, because I'm afraid of him. Okay? And we'll maybe spend some time on Thursday talk about what the Nesivos Shalom suggests are the symbols of Esau and the symbols of Lavan, and what he's really concerned about. And he sleeps that night, and he brings his things over, and then he will fight with the angel. And the angel, what's the fight with the angel that happens that night? Who is the angel?
The name?
I'm sorry?
His name, you mean?
Well, what is this angel? Who does he represent? Sorry? Esau represents Esau, supposedly. It looks like it's a fight with Esau. And the angel grasps him in Kaf Yirecho, which they translate as his... he stuck the socket of his hip. Kaf Yirecho. Yerech, he means down here, right? So Ramban will actually point out this is the area of reproduction. And the fact that the angel grasped that area, which is here, Yerech.
Oh.
It's your lap. Okay?
And that's the area of reproduction?
Well, that goes into your area of reproduction.
Oh, okay.
So basically what the angel is trying to show is that I can weaken your ability, your children, I can attack your children. Not weaken you reproductively, but it's more of a symbolic attack. Yeah. But I can never fully eliminate you. Yaakov is victorious, but he's wounded, which means Esau or his angels or his minions can actually weaken us, but can never defeat us. So all of these, the story is a story of Yaakov and Esau. However, you've seen what the Ramban says. The Ramban points out that all the stories of the Avot, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are really portending to what will take place in the future.
Yeah.
So we're going to see three Rambans, and they all kind of point that to the future of what this is. Okay? Is that so far so good?
Okay.
Let's take a look at Ramban. Okay? So I want to do three Rambans. Ramban on 32:4, and on 32:9, and 32:26. And then we'll see what time we have left. Okay, this is the first Ramban on Parshas Vayishlach, I'm sorry. And I don't have the same page as you have. I don't know, if I find it for one, I'll find it.
394.
Vayishlach, 394. Okay.
394.
One more page it looks like. There we go. Okay. So this is the first Ramban on the Parsha. He's introducing the Parsha. Nichtava Parsha Zot. This Parsha was written. The whole story of Yaakov meeting Esav. The whole Parsha is Vayishlach. Because if you think about it, we most of what we know about what the Avos, what they do. Here it's more about the relationship of these two brothers coming together. What does it really say to us? Yaakov had to behave a certain way to deal with Esav, but it's not Yaakov behaving. It's Yaakov behaving in conjunction with Esav. We want to know how Yaakov behaves to give us a lesson. What's the importance of learning how he had to behave with his brother? So there is a lesson. It tells us, first of all, Ki Yitzil HaKadosh Baruch Hu et Avdo. God saved his servant means he saved Yaakov. U'yalom yad chazak mimenu, and he saved his servant. He'll save all his servants from that which was stronger than him. So will save us. And how did he save us? How did he save Yaakov? By Shlach malach vayatzileu. God sent an angel and he saved him. Now, which angel did God save? Not very clear in the Ramban what this means. There is no angel that God says. It's possible that the Ramban is referring to the angel that fights with Yaakov, and the fact that this angel showed Yaakov that he was victorious was the symbol of Yaakov that Yaakov will succeed.
Yeah, because there seems to be three angels. There's the angel of God,
Yes,
the angel of Esav,
yes.
and the angel of Yaakov.
Who's the angel of God? Where's the angel of God? Did he meet in last week's parsha?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's three different kinds of angels.
Right, but which angel is meant to save Yaakov?
His angel.
Who's his angel? Where does that come up in the parsha?
Well, he says
the one who told to leave Lavan? Maybe. Okay, but the Ramban is trying to tell you there's something in the story here that we can learn from.
Oh.
The Ramban says somewhere in Parshas Vayishlach, God sends an angel to save Yaakov. Now, you could argue that the angels that Yaakov sees going up and down in the end of Parshas Vayetzi, those are the angels that he sends ahead of him, and those are the angels that help him, possibly. I think what the Ramban is actually referring to, these are some of the commentaries on Ramban say, is the fight he has with the angel of Esav is meant to show him that he will not be defeated by Esav. So it's not saving him as much as showing that he can actually be saved. Vayishlach malachol vayatzileu. So one thing that we learn from this Parshas Vayishlach is God takes care of his servants, Yaakov, and us, and will save his servants, Yaakov and us, from all kinds of dangers, or from dangers. Ulamdeinu, that's one lesson. The second lesson is second thing we learned from this, one should never really rely upon his schus. Don't rely upon what you think your relationship is with God. And he tried with all his powers and possibilities to save himself. You got to try to do your own hishtadlus in order to try to be successful. And that's the thing that learns from the story. Okay, the third thing, v'yeshba od remez l'darot. There's a third remez, the third hint for future generations. Shekol asher ira l'avino mesav achiv yera lano tamid b'nei Esav. Whatever happened to Yaakov and Esav is going to be a symbol for what will happen to us with the descendants of Esav, which is what we think are the Romans. We're the Romans, or Christianity. And we should therefore, the third message is really for us, that we should follow the ways of what Yaakov did. We should do the same things that he did to prepare for this meeting, which is l'tfilah, l'doron, u'lahatzalah b'derech melchama. Yaakov prepares for three things. He prays to God. He sends a gift to Esav, so you try to deal with the authorities by bribing them or build relationships, and you prepared for eventual war to either fight milchama, livroach, or to run away, latzil, to save oneself. So the third topic that comes out of this thing is when we're dealing with the descendants of Esav, we're dealing with the non-Jewish world, we have to do it in a way, the same way he did it, which is tefillah, doron, doron is matana, and hatzalah, and trying to save ourselves. So the three lessons the Ramban says that come out of this parsha is, number one, is God will save us. Number two, don't rely on God, do everything you can do. And the three thing, when you deal with the authorities, try to follow these three things, tefillah, doron, and hatzalah, like Yaakov did, in order to be successful. Okay, so that's the introduction to the parsha. So far, so good? So, and the lesson is therefore for us.
It's an interesting statement to say don't rely on God, where the whole religion is based on relying on God.
It's not based on relying on God. It's based on the fact that God will save. Do you remember we learned the Ramban on Parshas Noach? I think it was the first week we met after Sukkot. Well, you weren't here, but some of the others were. And the Ramban said that you couldn't fit all the animals into the teva. It's not possible. The Ramban said if you calculate all the animals and calculate the size of the ark, it's not possible every animal would be able to make it and survive and get in the ark and so forth. Would have enough space. So Ramban said actually it was a miracle. So Ramban says, well, if it was such a miracle, so how come God told Noah to build an ark that was so big? Why not build a rowboat?
Yeah.
Why not build a bateau? If it's a miracle, and the Ramban basically gives two reasons. Ramban says when he actually wanted people to see Noah building the ark, which took 120 years. And the second thing Ramban says is you got to try to do as much as you can. Within the confines of what was technology of those days, you could build this kind of big ark. So it was enough, it was not enough, but you did what you can do. So God was showing us a lesson, try as much as you can, and He'll fill in the rest. But you can't just say, God save. So it's not just putting up your hands and saying, the Almighty look after me. I've got to do my own hishtadlut to try and make sure that God can save me.
No, but if we go back to the last statement you made about Yaakov knowing that he would be saved because one of his progeny has to survive because God Hashem promised him that he was going, one of you was going to carry on.
But it's, I guess, an if-then clause. God promised us we will be saved, but we still have to do our own hishtadlut.
Okay. Right. Okay.
So far good?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Pasuk Daled. So he goes to El Esav Achiv Atzah Seir. So the Ramban gives you the geography. Bavor Hayot Negev Eretz Yisrael Eidei Edom. Because the land of Israel in the south, the Negev, is near the land of Edom. Yaviv Yoshev Be'eretz HaNegev, and his father Yitzchak, is in the Negev. Yesh lo lavar derech Edom karov misham. Yaakov would have to pass near Edom or through the land of Edom to get there. Al kain pachad olai Ishma Esav. And therefore he was afraid that Esav would hear about this. So he preempted this. Viktim l'shloch elav malachim l'artzo. So he tried to preempt Esav by sending ahead angels to Esav's land. Was this good or bad? So the Ramban quotes the Medrash, which Rashi also quotes. The Chachamim actually caught him. How they translate? What did you say?
Caught on it.
They caught him on it, or they kind of they pointed out this was a bad thing. It means they kind of tfasusam. They noted the negativity of this. They said it was a mistake. They caught him on the error, as it says in Bereshis Rabbah. Machzik biyaznei kelev. It's like you pull on the ear of a dog. You're afraid the dog will bite you. So what do? You pull on the ear of the dog. You probably mean to restrain the dog. What do? You get the dog riled up and he bites you.
He bites you. That's right.
So you have this angry dog, and dogs are always considered angry and wild and untamed in many cases, or they were unleashed. And so consequently, because you riled up the dog, you thought you would protect yourself, you actually did the worst.
So Esau was not already on the way.
That's what it means. In other words, Esav is hearing, and he's on the way, and now he diverts. That's what you'd have to say. Esav was marching along somewhere. He hears that Yaakov is coming.
So he heard, not from the messengers. He heard already. He knew.
Either he knew or now he knows. The way the Medrash seems to say is, even though it looks like the messengers come and they come back and said, now Esav is coming, what they're really saying is, now that we told him, the Esav is coming, V'arba me'at Yishimo. In other words, that's how you'd have to interpret the Medrash, which can fit into the Psukim, whether when Yaakov sends these messengers to Esav and they come back and they say, we went to Esav, you know what, he's also coming to see you. He heard about your coming. He's coming to give you the royal welcome with 400 big Vilda fare. Okay? So Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'darko ha'yemahalech. Look how the Medrash says it. Esav was going, but he was going in his way. And Yaakov sent him and said, here comes your servant Yaakov. And now he turned and he came to see you. So this is how the Ramban says that Yaakov was caught, or Yaakov was cited, probably a good idea, good translation. Yaakov was cited for doing something that he probably should not have done. That's how the Medrash understands it. Ramban says, Ramban always likes to find the pshat. V'al-dati, and according to my understanding, says the Ramban, this event, this tells us something in the future that will happen. And let me tell you exactly what happens. It's a Hanukkah story, a post-Hanukkah story. Mm-hmm. You know the Hanukkah story? Yes. So after Hanukkah takes place, and they defeat the Syrian Greeks, eventually after a number of years, not right away the first year, Antiochus IV, who is defeated in the story of Hanukkah, or actually retreats does not retreat completely to Israel, gives the Maccabees their temple. They get the temple back. Antiochus IV, which is the edge of the Syrian Greek Empire, is still in control of the area, but relinquishes his control of the temple and allows the Jews to worship as they want to. However, eventually Antiochus pulls back, and the Maccabees or their descendants are able to form actually a free, independent country. So the Hashmonaim, not immediately in the immediate aftermath of the conquest of the Beis HaMikdash, not in the immediate aftermath of the story of Hanukkah, but over a number of years, Antiochus IV and later Demetrius, his successor, pulled back and allow the Jews to have their own kingdom. This is not because of any great miracle of the Jews, it might be as well, but really because he had more problems in the other end of his kingdom. He didn't have the ability to divide his forces all around. He says the Jews are a small group, they're a little problem, I got bigger problems at the other end, so he kind of pulled back his forces, and as a result he created a vacuum, and the Maccabees were actually, or the Hashmonaim were able to actually build their own independent kingdom. That kingdom goes until about the years might be a little confused here. Hanukkah is about 164 BCE. This goes all the way down to about the year, I think, 30 or 50 or 60 or something like that CE. It runs for about 100 or so years. And at that point, there is a division between two brothers of the Hasmoneans, Aristobulus and John Hyrcanus.
The kingdom of the Hashmonaim?
Yes, the kingdom of the Hashmonaim.
Because Herod already killed them all, and that's 4 BC.
Correct. So Herod this is before Herod. This is actually before. Herod is there during the Roman era.
Also, we're still
right.
BC.
They're still BCE. So in fact, what we have is one of the reasons for Hanukkah Geld. One of the reasons for Hanukkah Geld is not chocolate, but the fact that the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, printed their own money. And we have found coins that were printed. So this is where the concept of Hanukkah Geld. Now you can only print your own money if you are independent. You can't print money in Ontario. You can only print money from Canada. You can print, monopoly money, okay? But not real money. So as a result, the Hashmonaim had their own kingdom, and they went for a few generations. In the end of the kingdom, there were two brothers, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, and they couldn't decide who would be the inheritor of the kingdom, and they were scrapping back and forth. One was inside the Beis HaMikdash, one was outside the Beis HaMikdash. The one that was outside the Beis HaMikdash used to send the carbon up the wall every day to they would bring for the Tamid, the daily sacrifice. This went on for quite a while, till one day they stopped, or one day they sent up a pig, whatever it was not a very nice thing that went on. As a result, they couldn't really mediate their machloikis. So they went to Rome. And they said, we'd like you, because the Roman Empire is now just developing. The Greek Empire has been supplanted. The Romans are moving into the area. They said, we'd like you to be able to decide which one of us should be the king. And Rome came in and they made, and here I forget which one they made. I believe Hyrcanus they made to be the king. They said, you'll be the king, but you're not going to be the king. We're the king. You will be a prince. You will be the ruler, so to speak, but it's going to be under our auspices. And at that point, Rome came in and it becomes part of the Roman Empire. And from there until that point moves along, you do have the end of the Hashmonaim. You have Herod who takes over. You have a number of other kings who have later on. You have the king called Agrippus II, Agrippus I, Agrippus II who take over, but they're all really under the rule of the Romans. And at that point, of course, things kind of really go out of control. And the year 70 CE, the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. The bottom line of the story is that the Romans are actually invited in to settle the dispute, but when the Romans come in, they never leave. So says the Ramban, if you want to look for a point in Jewish history that this is a precursor of, it's that Yaakov reaches out to Esav. Yaakov reaches out to Esav as a way to try to resolve the issues. It doesn't really resolve the issues, but making nice to Esav only allows Esav to develop independently and stay in Har Seir. Yaakov eventually goes on, but Esav never really receives from the rising. He leaves the Jewish people alone, but he will be Seir all the way, and his descendants will go all the way into the future. So Ramban says every event in Bereshis is a precursor of something real in the future. Where it is, it's like a Monday morning quarterbacking. Whether it's going down to Egypt, Avram went to Egypt, so the Jewish people would go down to Egypt. We saw a number of these examples. So the same thing here. If Yaakov reached out to Esav, this is a precursor for this event that the two Hashmonaim brothers, descendants of the Hashmonaim, reached out to Rome, and Rome is considered the descendants of Esav. Esav is Edom, Edom is Rome. So right for Ramban. So and according to what I think says Ramban, which everything that happens in Bereishis hints at something in the future. We brought down our own downfall with Edom. The kings of Beit Sheni, we're talking about the two Hashmonaim brothers, and it's found in the book of Hashmonaim, in the first book of Hashmonaim. They reached out, and what they do, they reached out to the Romans. And even some of them actually went to Rome. We have these people, and we also have later on Agrippus the king, who is a Jew or is half Jew. He goes up to Rome as well. And with this continued alliance with Rome, it leads to Churban Abayit. And this is the reason why we fell. This is found, he refers to the book of Yosiphon. Yosiphon is a book that was known in the Middle Ages. It's not the book of Josephus. The book of Josephus is a book that was written in Greek, was not known to the Chazal. Yosiphon is based upon some parts of Josephus, but it's not completely accurate. But it takes some of the Josephus stories and mixes them with other legends. So this is what happened, but it is correct that we know the story is true, that they brought the Romans in. And this was the beginning of the downfall leading to Churban Abayis. So reaching out to Esav is not always good. Here Yaakov thought he was creating overtures of peace by sending messengers, and what happens? He's got 400 Vilda mention coming up against him. Now it works out, right? But he's got to go through the fight with the angel. He has to kind of greet Esav, and they eventually do split off, but it looked like it could have gone the other way. Okay, that's the first Ramban. So therefore, in other words, it's a reality check to something that did happen. That's my first Ramban for today. The second Ramban, I'm going to move ahead to verse...
The second one is Agrippa. He's not going to the Romans. He was sent to Rome when he was 3, and he was in the...
Who we go?
Classmate.
Who's this? Agrippa?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, there are two Agrippas. Right?
He was classmate with Gaius and Claudius.
Right.
And when he grew up, he just asked them to make him king in Judea.
Right.
But he didn't go to. Just remember his roots, that
right.
he's Jewish.
Correct. So once again, so the Ramban here does not mention really Agrippas. The case the Ramban is talking about is about inviting in the Romans. The first time. What did he say? Anything in the footnotes? Probably footnotes. Chevel's footnotes probably says that the Ramban in Parshas Bechukosai talks about the case of Agrippas, and the Ramban also mentions it in another sefer wrote called Sefer Gula. But here, this looks like he's really more referring to when they invited the Romans in. There's the first time they reached out to the Romans and they never left.
For what reason? What do they want the Romans in there for?
They wanted the Romans to decide who would be king. Because these two guys couldn't decide that who would be number one and who would be number two. And the moral of the story is, if you can't decide amongst yourselves, don't bring in Romans.
That's right.
Because they'll make themselves number one. But that's actually what happened. Rome was able to make this a satrap or a colony of the Roman Empire without firing a shot.
That's right.
Right. And once they came in, and Rome is growing in strength. Right. One empire is supplanting the other. When the Jews come back, and it's when Ezra comes back, and the empire, Israel is controlled by Paras and Madai, Persians, and the Medians. Then the Greeks come on the scene. Then the Romans come on the scene, etc., etc., etc. And now Israel's on the scene. There you go. So this is the first Ramban, which talks about the whole lessons for what the Parsha is, about us, about God not abandoning us. And some of the cases, or some of the situations actually seem to mirror or refer to eventual situations that will come up in the future. Okay, now, in Pasuk, in verse 9. Verse 9 talks about when Yaakov divided up his camp. And we asked the question, why did Yaakov divide his camp? Why did Yaakov divide his camp? So the Ramban is going to tell us a few reasons why Yaakov divided his camp. One is that first of all, it's good financial sense to divide your assets. Don't bet everything on one stock. Divide your assets in different corners. Not necessarily physically, but make sure that your assets are. I guess if you put everything under the mattress burns, it's all gone. So make sure that your assets, your financial assets, are divided up. That's the first thing the Ramban will talk about. And the second thing he talks about actually the fact that we eventually will not be wiped out completely. We're here for the long run. So good. Pasuk 9. What page is it on? You found it?
397.
Good. Okay. Pasuk 10. And the leftover camp will run away. So the Ramban is going to explain to us. First of all, how did Yaakov know that he'd have a camp that could run away, could flee? And maybe maybe Esau would destroy everything. That's the question we asked before. And second of all, what does this come to teach us? What are we learning from this lesson? And the Ramban is, once again, you'll see in the second part of this Ramban, what does the Ramban do? He makes application to the Jewish history later on. And you'll see how it plays out. It's actually fascinating. So Aderech Pshat Omar Zebu Lai. If you want to read the simple Pshat, when Yaakov says the remaining camp will be able to flee, so he's not saying with definitiveness. He's saying hopefully that if I divide my camp in two, hopefully if Esau hits one camp and destroys one camp, hopefully the second camp will be able to hightail it out. Why? Because Ki Amar Ulai Yinatzel Machneho Echad. Because maybe the one camp will be able to save itself. When he attacks one camp, while he's busy and involved in destroying one camp, the other camp will run away and escape. Why?
No, it's just. But the thing is that Esau is after Yaakov. So why would he go after the other camp when Yaakov is not there? He doesn't know
where Yaakov is. Because he's not just interested in destroying Yaakov, he's interested in destroying his camp. There's a lot of booty as well. It's like when you've seen enough crime videos to see when you have a group of criminals running away. What do? They don't shoot them all, but they break off into different places. If two people rob a bank, they each run different ways.
Yes.
So one of them will escape. That's the idea. They can't go after everybody. Cops have to divide their forces. As opposed to they stay together, then surely both will be caught. So therefore he's hoping, in other words, it doesn't mean that he knows for sure. The simple pshat is, I don't know for sure, but good logic would say that if I divide my forces, there's a good chance the second group will escape. Or shetashuv chamato, or if it's not an issue of escaping, maybe it's possible that Esau will be spent with his anger. He'll be angry against me, still holds the grudge against me. Once he's killed out one camp, he'll say, okay, fine, we did enough pillaging for tonight. We did enough destroying for tonight. Or maybe if the first camp is destroyed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will save the second camp. There's time for God to act, so to speak. So all of these pshatim are really what's saying it's based upon his internal thinking of strategizing, of thinking how to escape from Esau. If you can't save them all, save most of them. All doomsday escape plans assume that most people can escape, but not all people can escape.
But the other scenario is that it never talks about them preparing for a war, for a fight.
Well, that's what.
Why? If I don't know how many people Yaakov had, or if he had arms with him.
So that's what the Ramban is going to say.
Oh,
right. So
he didn't have soldiers.
He didn't have shepherds, but right, he's got a ragtag group of people who can't be an army.
The splitting of the camp is his preparation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, and it looks like it's more of a defensive kind of fight. Rather than an offensive fight against 400 Esau people are on the offensive.
He did the Jewish way.
Yeah.
Don't make trouble.
Okay.
So therefore, either they'll run away, or Esau will stop, or Hashem will save the other camp. The same thing we find in this concept, we find it in the Medrash. Medrash says the lesson really is not only about Yaakov, it's a life lesson for you. If you're involved in something, it looks like more financially, then you should divide your things in two different ways. Don't put everything together. Shouldn't put all your money in one corner, zavit echad. This way, if people come to attack you or plunder you, they won't get it all at one time. You've saved something for the rainy day. So the concept is an application. The simple meaning has application for us, if not for battle, because Jews are not soldiers, at least not in the days of Ramban. At least they have learned something in terms of managing your financial assets, managing your possessions. Don't keep them all in one little corner. Don't divide your risk.
Yeah, but if they kill you, what's the point of all that hidden wealth?
Well, that's true. So the assumption is they was not only looking for Yaakov, they were looking for everybody else. Yaakov was in the middle of this. He would have been protected by, his shepherds. Rashi writes a little bit differently. Rashi says, the camp that was remaining will escape. It means that not only they will run away, but it means that I will fight with them. Yaakov is saying Yaakov is afraid for himself, and he intended to fight with his people, and therefore he is setting up somehow a battalion or a home front that will fight, and therefore hitkin atzmo l'shlosh dvarim. This is what Ramban said earlier. He prepared himself for three things: tefillah, doron, and milchamos, for battling for battle. And as a result, he is preparing himself as well for the battle. Now, Rashi is not only therefore talking about financial assets, he's talking about how to fight a battle. This is a good strategy plan that a person should divide himself into two different battalions in order to be able to attack properly. So it's not just to run. It's when we run and then return to fight back. V'chein ikar, says the Ramban, and this is what it really thinks is, and this is what it means. And v'ra'iti b'medrash me'asa, what did the Medrash say? Me'asa zinam or zainam b'bifnim v'ilbishim b'gadim levanim v'mechutz. They had their weapons underneath, and they were wearing their white shepherd's clothing on the outside. They were really undercover troops. Overtures were to be peaceful, and the hitkin atzmo l'shlosh dvarim b'chein ikar. They prepared themselves for three things: to try to give a gift, to try to pray to God, and to try to protect themselves. The reason for this is, and here you want to know why was Yaakov not afraid he would die? Ki Yaakov yodea shein zavar kulo nofel b'yad Esav. Yaakov knew that he could never be fully defeated because God made the promise to him he would look after him. And therefore, so at the very least, if one battalion was wiped out, the other battalion would remain alive. Someone was going to get out of this because Yaakov believed and understood from God's promise that he would live, or his descendants would live. He or his descendants. Okay? Now, what does this have to do with us? What does this have to do with Jewish history? So the Ramban says that I guess according to the Medrash, Esav is Edom. Edom becomes Rome. We already kind of talked about that with the Romans and the Maccabees. That's the descendants of Esav. That's the connection. So Esav is Edom. The Edomites were considered the Romans, and that comes up in a number of sources in the days of the Romans. And then what happens after the destruction of Churban Abayis? You still have a Roman Empire. Eventually the Roman Empire peters out. So what really happens to the Roman Empire? What happens to the descendants of Esau? So in the eyes of Chazal, this is not a genetic thing as much as how they understand the future of the exile, is the Roman Empire eventually becomes Christian. This is true. Yeah. In other words, the Romans were not Christians; they were pagans. Then it becomes Christianity, becomes a religio licita, a legal religion, one of many religions you could practice. And then the Roman emperors themselves become Christians. And eventually the Roman Empire becomes the Holy Roman Empire because it's the Christian Empire. Spreads and spreads and spreads. Again, eventually begins to crumble into different pieces. But when it crumbles, you're still leaving behind a Christian Europe. So Christianity in the eyes of Chazal, or Christian Europe, as the inheritors of the ideology of the Roman Empire, which was a Christian empire after it was a pagan empire. Am I making sense? Okay. That's how Chazal see this continuum. And we are therefore living in the continuation of Galut Edom. There was Galut Bavel, this first exile. The second exile is Galut Edom. So Edom is no longer here. There's no really Rome. You can see the Colosseum in Rome. You can see the Arch of Titus. The original Romans are gone. But the legacy of Rome is the acceptance of Christianity, which spread across the Roman Empire. That remained, and that continued to develop. And as a result, we live in the Middle Ages, during the days of the Ramban, we lived under various different kingdoms and lands that were all Christian. Right? The Ramban himself is a good example. He left Spain. He defended his Judaism against Pablo Christianity, the Meshumah, the apostate. He won. He had to leave Spain, and eventually he went to Israel, which was I think at that point may have been under the control of the Crusaders. I'm not sure, maybe the control of the Muslims, but most of Europe at that point was under the control of Christianity. So says the Ramban, the good news and bad news is, the bad news is that the Roman Empire is still there, and we're in Galut Edom. The good news is, that's the bad news, the good news is that we're not under one Roman kingdom, we're not under one Christian kingdom. When one kingdom wants to wipe us out, the other kingdom kind of gives us an ability to move. If you study Jewish history in the Middle Ages, Jews are always moving. They're moving back and forth. They move into Poland when they can't live in Western Europe anymore. Poland lets them in a very early period. Eventually there are problems in Poland, so they move and they move and they move, and eventually they come to the New World. But it's never one country that controls them all. The hidden lining in the cloud of the Holocaust is the Jewish community had already moved somewhat to America, to other countries. So Hitler could never wipe out the entire Jewish world unless he conquered the Allied world, the Allied forces. As long as he was in Europe, the Jews who were not in Europe would be... No, a lot of Jews were killed in Europe, 6 million. Communities were wiped out, things changed. But it never was, could not wipe out the entire Jewish people. The last time that the entire Jewish people lived under one domination was the story of Purim. Right? Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. As the Jews lived under Roman Empire, the Jews in Bavel lived under a different empire. But even in the Middle Ages, where they were all in the Christian Europe, there were different kingdoms. So says the Ramban, this is the same thing of Yaakov dividing his camp into two. If Esav goes after one camp, the other camp will escape. If in Spain they're having the Inquisition, then the Jews can travel to, Portugal or France or Germany or Holland, for example. When they went to Holland, where they were more tolerant. So they were also Christian countries, but there was different tolerances at different times with different people. So says the Ramban, "V'gam zeh yirmoz." This comes to hint, the fact that Yaakov divided two camps, hints that Yosef could not really wipe us all out, could not make a gzeirah to destroy us completely. Aval Yasu wrote in they would make all kinds of troubles in some of the lands that were under their control. They divided things up. Melech echad gozer b'artzah momanenu ola gafenu. One king, one land, one kingdom makes a decree against our money, our assets, or our bodies. We can't be Jewish. And another king at the same time will have mercy on us, allow us to flourish economically, and will save the remnants. And this is what the Bereshit Rabbah, the Medrash says. If Esav comes to one camp and hits it, or destroys it, beats it, this is what's the Elo. So what does it mean? These are our brothers in the south. These are the people in the diaspora. This is talking about the difference between Israel. The Rome is the south, means Israel. The Golah is Babel. Babel is northeast of Israel. So in other words, the Medrash says, if you have Esav people, our enemies trying to destroy us in Israel, in Babel we can flourish. So even for the future times, the future of the Jewish people, this parsha actually hints at what will actually be. So the Ramban extrapolates from this parsha, once again, another life lesson about the future of Jewish history. We will never all be destroyed at the same time. So the second lesson. First lesson was, what was the first lesson the Ramban told us? Do not reach out to Rome to solve our problems. The fact that we reached out to Rome was the end of the independence of the Chashmonaim. Second lesson is, no matter how bad Esav is, we will never be all in the same boat at the same time. Different kingdoms, different subheadings will be in us, and the other groups will allow us to come in.
But in a world that we live in today, Rome may have been replaced by, let's say, the United States.
Yes, correct. True.
So now we go to the United States for our assistance, in dealing with these kind of matters.
Reaching out to Rome.
Yeah, we're reaching out. We're still reaching out.
Right. But we're not bringing the United States into Israel.
But the United States has their hand in everything we do.
Yes, it does. So that's also the message. You have to reach out to deal with the authorities, and you have to know how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Right. And we try to do that. We have AIPAC. We have ways to reach out and influence political opinion in the United States. So that's the second Ramban. So 2 Rambans. One more Ramban for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the one in Pasuk 26, Pasuk Chavav. 26. This Ramban is a little graphic. 26 Chavav. This is about the fight with the angel. Okay, Yaakov that night has the fight with the angel, and they grapple all night. And then what does the angel do? This angel, which is the Sar of Esav, grabs onto the Yerach, the thigh of Yaakov, weakens it, pulls it out. It's the sciatic sinew that we don't eat, right? That's a symbol. It's one of the mitzvot, the few mitzvot that come up in Parashat Sefer Bereshit. How many mitzvot do we have in Parashat Bereshit? 3. Pruruvu. You don't have it as a mitzvah. We have it listed as an event. Bris Milah, 2 positive mitzvot. And the third mitzvah we have is Gid Anasha, the sciatic sinew, which you cannot eat. You have to extract from the animal.
Yeah. But if you take it off, you can eat that part of it.
Right. If you eat the hindquarters of the animal, correct. Right.
So they do that here?
They don't do it in North America. No, they don't.
I know in Morocco they do.
They probably did in Morocco, yes. There were large discussions in England a century ago, or maybe even the early 1900s, to allow them to use the hindquarters.
Yeah.
And the issues were very complicated because to extract the Gid Hanasha, and it's not just there's a sciatic sinew, and then there are also different fats from the hindquarters of the animals have to be cut out. You have to be an experienced butcher to do it properly. And if you don't do it properly, either you leave it behind, it snaps and gets stuck in the meat, or you make a mess of the meat by trying to cut it out and getting down to it. It's like when you see them digging out the street to get the pipes.
Yes.
So you need to know exactly how to cut the meat to get into the sciatic sinew to be able to pull it out. It's deep in there. So we don't do it. In Israel, they do it. It is done in Israel. It's done in certain countries. It was a big fight in London about it in the 1930s, and they eventually decided not to do it at all. The butchers wanted to do it, the housewives wanted to do it, and the rabbis did not want to do it because it was not being done properly. And it's what the Bible tells us here that the Jewish people don't need to get on Asha. Not just simply a rabbinic addition; it's a Torah level prohibition. At any rate, those are the 3 laws that come from Bereshit. So what comes out? The angel fights with Yaakov, and the angel is not able to be successful, but is able to weaken Yaakov. Vayar ki lo yachol lo. This is Ramban on 26. So the angel saw that he could not overcome the Jewish people or overcome Yaakov. This becomes a symbol of the fact that our enemies will never be able to completely overcome us. They can weaken us. They can do all kinds of terrible things. This can be a very difficult battle, as it was with Yaakov. And as a result, this is what the message is. Vayar ki lo yachol lo. Do you have it? You don't have it.
No, I don't have
What page are you on? 406. 406. We good?
Yep.
Okay. Vayar ki lo yachol lo. And the angel saw that he could not overcome Yaakov, and he grabs him in the thigh, the Yerach Yaakov. Malachav giborei koach osed dvaro. The malachim of Hashem are strong, and they do the will of Hashem. So they do what's the will of Hashem? The will of Hashem is actually not to be able to defeat Yaakov, that Yaakov will survive. And as a result, because they can only follow God's command, and God's command is that Yaakov will be successful and eventually survive, this Malach could not overcome Yaakov. Ramban is saying that the Malach had certain limitations. Right? It's like on some trucks they put a limiter on how fast they can go.
Yes.
Right? You can't go beyond that speed. So the Malach only had limits because he had to follow God's command, which was to allow Yaakov to survive. Al Kain, lo yachol lo hamalach laziko. Therefore the Malach could not actually be successful and defeat Yaakov completely, and couldn't hurt him anymore. Why? Ki lo hursho rak b'ma sh'asa imo la'kal kaf yirecho. He only had permission to hurt him, to weaken his kaf yerach, the socket of the yerach. And the yerach, as I told you, becomes a symbol, and this is what the Raman really is trying to say, the symbol of reproduction, the symbol of the future. So this talks about which are the progeny of Yaakov, not just all the Jewish people, the tzaddikim, all the Yaakov wannabes of the future, all the almost Yaakovs that come out in the future. So where the fight of Esav is to weaken the religious leadership of the Jewish people. The Amru b'Reishis Rabbah, and this is why the Medrash Reishis Rabbah says, "Nogaba tzadikim she'atidim liyot mimeno." This is the weakening of the progeny of Yaakov. The real progeny of pride is the religious leadership, the tzaddikim, the religious leaders, the Talmidei Chachamim. And what is going on? This is a vision, or this is a prophecy of Dorosh Shema, the generation of the where they tried to wipe us out. It's referring to the time of the Hadrianic persecutions. One of the most cruelest times that exists after Churban Abayis is in the 130s. Hadrian comes to power, the Emperor Hadrian comes to power in 115. By 130, he declares that Judaism is forbidden. Jews have a choice either to stop practicing Judaism, or they go undercover, and then you have Bar Kokhba, and the Bar Kokhba revolts go undercover. And we have a lot of excavations from that era because they were underground, right? And initially they were successful. When more and more people went underground, they would eventually look for the smoke channels. We talked about this once. They had to have a place to vent where they were cooking. So if you look carefully, you could eventually see some smoke or heat coming out from some underground places that were covered in camouflage, but that's when the Romans began to understand where the Jews were. So they went after the Jewish leadership. And what this is telling us, this whole event of the fight with the angel, is a hint about what will take place to the generations or descendants of Yaakov. So that Esav will destroy them almost until as if they would break their eggs. In other words, they would destroy them completely. It's like you crack the egg and break the egg, mash the egg into nothing. There's nothing left of it. Kakeh Beitzatam is like scramble the eggs. This refers to specifically one generation of the days of the Mishnah, which is Kedar, like the generation of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava v'Chaver. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava was one of the Asar Rugi Malchus. He was killed during this era of time, and he was killed very cruelly. K'moshe Amru, as it says in the Shir and Rabbah, Amar Rabbi Chia ba'Abba, Yomali Adam Tein Nafshecha al Kedushat Shmo Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu. If someone were to say to me, Rabbi Chia ba'Abba lives generations later, he says, if someone were to say to me, give your soul, give your life for Kiddush Hashem, so I need no tain, I'd be happy to give it. But my only condition is, kill me right away. I don't mind dying for Kiddush Hashem, but make it painless. But in the time of the generation of the Shman, of the Hadrianic persecutions, they did terrible, horrible, painful tortures and persecution. What did they do? They would bring balls of iron, and they would they would put them in the furnace until they were white hot. They would put them underneath their armpits. And their souls would kind of just be sucked out. This is one of your most sensitive areas of your body. So they would put the burning hot balls of iron under there. The Ramban is probably referring to things he may have seen or heard about in the days of the Inquisition, or not Inquisition, other kinds of persecutions, where it wasn't enough just to kill the Jew, but you tortured them along the way. And they did this in order that people would renounce their Judaism. They didn't want to just kill them. They want them to become not scared, but to give up and give up and say, I renounce my Judaism to accept your religion and stop the torturing. So and there were things that happened that were not just in the generation of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, but even later generations, which were also generations of Shema, generations where we were persecuted, and which were worse than even the graphic image that I just gave you, says the Ramban. V'akol savanu v'avar aleinu, and everything we have gone through and we've passed by Moshe Ramaz, as it says, after he fights with the angel, and after Yaakov meets Esav, and after it's all said and done, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem, Yaakov comes complete and whole and reaches the city of Shechem. Then he gets, of course, the problem with Dinah. But the bottom line is, all of this shows that Yaakov will survive. There'll be very difficult times, the same way fighting with the angel, which you can't even imagine how difficult it would be, but nonetheless the angel could only go so far. So they will try to torture us and weaken us and take away our faith. We will maintain that and we will survive. So this is the third Ramban in a row in Parshas 32, in Parshas Lamed Bet, and Parshas Lamed Gimel, which the Ramban says once again, this is future visions of what the future will be. Reaching out to Esav precurses the inviting in the Romans. Dividing the camp is about the fact that when we're under Roman control or under our enemy's control, when one country is bad, we're divided, and the other country is good. The third is when Yaakov fights the angel weakens Yaakov, but Yaakov survives. This is a symbol of what will happen when we have different people try to destroy us and weaken us and torture us, but we as a people will survive. Not every Jew will survive, but we as a people will survive. That's the third of the three. Okay? Chazak Baruch, and I think this is probably a good place for us to stop and take a break. Okay?
What does he call the door of Shema?
The door of Shema, he's talking about the Hadrianic persecution, but I think he's extending it as well to any generation which was a generation where they persecuted. Jews have, like the Crusades, it could be anything. Like when Muhammad tried to wipe out the tribes in Arabia. After the Crusades, you have the Inquisition. So you can look in one generation. There are certain times it's much more. It's never easy to be a Jew, but there are times it's more difficult to be Jew and times less difficult to be Jew.
You see that those times they were just beginning.
True, but he's referring specifically to the Adriatic persecutions.